Hello, this is Ron and Hugh. Welcome to Politically Challenged. This week we will talk about perceptions of masculinity in society. Now we're going to do it off the cuff. We're not no unstructured, so we're going to basically see where this conversation takes us. Now,
No change from the usual then.
no. When you think of masculinity, what would you think of, Renujan?
I would say responsibility and basic obligation. Masculinity I associate with men, have careers, have jobs, and are supporting their families. Masculinity, okay, men being the provider and like being a strong role model for your children or hypothetical children and other people. So basically, being a teacher. I just think I probably associate with power rather than being weak. Someone like with control, someone in control. What do you think?
So, following on from that, when I think of masculinity, from what we've seen in society, I have the impression that being masculine involves, yes, taking control of your life, being focused, being determined, being tough.
Aggressive, you mean?
Not I mean, at times. I mean, maybe somebody who stands up for themselves, somebody who isn't necessarily soft or oversensitive. There's a huge stigma in people being sensitive even now. I feel as if that when we were growing up, there were preconceived ideas of, remember when you were a child and you thought that all of these adults had life sorted. They would have a house, they'd have money, they'd have, like you'd see people with kids and it's like, okay, grown-ups are supposed to be married with children. Grown-ups are supposed to have money. Grown-ups are supposed to have a home of their own. That's what they always tell you.
Well, I basically grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, so like, what was I watching? Dragon Ball Z?
No, I mean,
Spider-Man?
I'm not talking about. I'm not
Fiction.
talking about. I'm not
That
talking
is
about.
related though, that is related. I mean, like, I say that's power and men and fighting and like being like,
but
I know the whole thing about responsibility and like being a.
those are two different things.
I know, but I associate them together. That's how you're talking about growing up.
Why do you associate them together then?
Well, it's.
With children's fiction and what you think being a man is supposed to be like.
Well, when I go back to control, like you think that whatever obstacle that comes your way, you can deal with it, whether it's bills or whether it's alien invading, hypothetically.
Okay.
I'm joking, but you know what I mean.
Okay, so
what were you going at?
In response, okay, so you're talking about children's TV shows and superhero films and stuff. You're talking about if in unlikely situations
Pretty unlikely.
Not unlikely. In
Hopefully unlikely.
life and death situations where it's unlikely that you will succeed in your mission when the stakes are high and everything seems to be going against you. Masculine people would tend to be brave, courageous, tough, clever, smart thinking, quick thinking, and heroic. That's what you mean?
People that would I think probably men. I mean, like, I've never had a thing against women. I mean, like, I had female teachers and all that stuff.
Well, I mean, when men have to do these things, obviously,
I think
female superheroes would have to have the same qualities.
I think men are expected to be these things, and women are like. I mean, there's always like things can be like women are strong and so on. But the thing is that women now have they could be strong now and they could be weak now. They have the luxury of being both, but a man has to be strong always. There's a social pressure.
No, I would argue on the liberal side, some people are arguing that men can be seen as sensitive as well, not necessarily weak, but someone can be seen as having feelings and that, just because you have emotions, you shouldn't hide them and that they're not weaknesses. Like in recent years, in recent times, people have made that argument time and time and again. But yes. So I'd say it goes both ways. I mean, there are people that say, oh, well, men can be sensitive too, men can cry too, but there are still preconceived ideas that men should be tough, men shouldn't cry, men should be brave and laddish and care about sports and cars and sex. Do you feel as if that it's difficult to reach the criteria of what you reach the criteria of being a true grown-up man?
I wouldn't say it's unattainable. It's just. Well, I would say there's a general view. It's very subjective. Like a man, like to some people, a man will be someone that hunts. I mean, I keep diverging, but you know my point, right? And a man always like diversifies. A man can do whatever.
Okay, sure.
Well, that's the point. A man's supposed to be, well, a man. I can't think of another word. You have to be the man. You have to be
The patriarch.
Yeah, you have to be the symbol of like, you have to be the head of the household. I mean, we looked at the interview by with Robert Webb, talk about his book How Not to Be a Boy, and how he had to deal with all the drama he had in his life, and he doesn't tell people that it's not okay. Even though that
he espouses that you don't necessarily have to be tough and laddish and rough and disrespectful to be a man. That you can be sensitive, you can be in touch with your emotions, you can talk about how you're feeling. He mentioned that when his mother was dying of cancer, he didn't know what to say. He couldn't tell her that he loved her because he was afraid that he would get upset and start crying and start losing it. So instead, he just told her, "Oh, Mom, I'm a virgin. What do I do about that?" And then while she was dying of cancer in the hospital bed, she was basically telling him, "I'm not surprised, I'm not unsurprised, but I'm sure you will catch up with them and surpass them in that and everything else." That's what she said to him.
Yeah, but he also, going back to that same example, he said that in that situation, he said that in that situation, when one person his mum's sick, so he felt that his responsibility to not get upset. Because she's the one sick, she's the one dying, so she has to be though.
Sure.
You have to allow that person to be upset.
Okay, yes. I mean, his mother was dying of cancer, so he also felt the responsibility to hide his emotions. One, because as a boy, as a young man growing up, he couldn't, and due to his background, he couldn't show his emotions. It wouldn't be seen as masculine. And two, because his mother was dying of cancer, so he didn't want to take that away. He didn't want to
take the attention. You mean?
Well, not just take the attention, but he didn't want to be the one losing it and losing control and being all emotionally upset. Well, like he was, in his mind, he was supposed to be strong for her instead of it being the other way around.
Which I think is valid. I mean, in that situation, he has to be. Well, I think you have to take responsibility in that situation. When someone was upset, you shouldn't be.
When someone's in that situation. When someone is in that position, yes, of course, you can make the argument that you'd have to be strong for that person, and during their time of need, they would need you to be strong. That makes sense. But going back to our main issue, we picked the topic of masculinity because I actually wanted to talk about masculinity as perceived by other people and as perceived by ourselves, as perceived by society in general. I wanted us to discuss the effects of masculinity in our own lives, and I wanted it to be more natural, more organic. I wanted us to talk about masculinity from a more personal standpoint. We can add some facts and stacks to the pages. We can give you some scientific studies on a later date, but I wanted to come from us to be more natural and organic. So Renujan, you remember all of these terrorist attacks, yes?
Yeah.
The ones that happened in Westminster Bridge, London Bridge, and Manchester, and so on. I think there were two others. There was Finsbury, and there was, I think, another one.
And like I mentioned, a few that were prevented. People ignore that there were so many attacks that were prevented. That's more terrifying, the fact that there were so many different attempts that nearly happened.
Well, I wouldn't say so many, but yes, there were other attacks that were prevented from happening.
Yeah.
But the ones that did happen, most of these people were relatively young. They were in their late 20s, early 30s. They were in their 20s or 30s. They were what we would call millennials. They were quite young men.
I think that Tunisia attack was like a 19-year-old or something, 20-year-old or something. Forget. Your point?
I don't know how old he was, but the point was, why are these relatively young men committing such heinous acts, such crimes against humanity? Why? I mean, you have to look at it. The only logical conclusions was that it was because of Islamist extremism, but I think it's more deeper than that, because obviously it's not extremist Islamist people who have committed terrorist attacks in London. I mean, you remember the IRA, you remember hearing about the South Key bombing. That was the IRA. Those weren't Muslims.
I think violent people would be violent regardless, and they just use whatever means they can to justify their actions. It's not. The thing about Islamophobia is the thing is that people feel that Islam is the only religion with extremism. That's some of the criticism it gets. But there's historical violence.
Historically,
every religion is violent. I mean, they are extremists. Christians, extremists, Hindus, Jews, and even Buddhists. I've told you there's a tribe of extremist Buddhists that don't eat human flesh. I mean, you wouldn't think that with Buddhists, but apparently they are.
Yeah, with the Buddhist, I was thinking more of what's been happening in Myanmar. But yes, I don't think religion matters that much. But people have been drawing the conclusion that it's because Islam, according to them, doesn't integrate well within society. But obviously, we know that's not true.
Yeah, let's go back to multiculturalism and people saying that different beliefs can't.
Yeah, some people don't feel as if that. Some people would just tend to look at the negatives of being in a multicultural society. But I think again, it's far deeper than that.
Yeah, we live in London, one of the most multicultural places and the biggest population in the country, and economically, everything starts in London and it goes to the rest of the country after. If we were so ineffective, surely we wouldn't be that practical. You know what I mean, right? If it wasn't a good idea, surely. I'm talking about economically, right? It works fine.
Okay, so you've got men committing these attacks regardless of their age. Some of them were in their 20s, some of them were much older. The man that committed the Westminster attack was in his 50s. Why do you think it's mostly men, if not all men, doing these attacks, especially the recent ones?
Well, when you think about religion, they say, I was talking about that word patriarchy. There's like an anticipation that the man's supposed to do certain things. Everything's a matter of perception. They feel that this is masculine, this is their duty as a man to, they say, bring about their message. It's really, you can't rationalize it.
But why is it almost always men committing these attacks? The ones last year, the ones in 2015.
And hypothetical ones that will happen later. They'll probably mostly be men. Minus that YouTuber who was a girl.
Yeah, she's like the only one of
major one that we know about.
She's like the only one of recent times that was a female terrorist going around killing people.
To me, I mean, like, I can't explain it, but
But why men though?
Men are inherently more violent.
Inherently more violent.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can have nature versus nurture and violence.
So we're talking about why these terrorists who have committed these terrorist attacks, why they are mostly men, why are they almost always men?
I think that's a big question. If you want to know why these are all men, if you have the answer for that, you probably have the answer for every war, basically. It's a male-dominated field, if you want to talk about it like that.
Perhaps it's a quest for power. Let's break this down. So
image.
It's more than that. Let's say
that's why media outlets don't talk about terrorists or shooters or whatever, because they don't want to grandize the person.
But they always talk about that stuff. It's
yeah,
like
but
that guy that killed Joe Cox is like, oh, his name was this, he came from this, he was mentally ill, he was a lone wolf. I don't want to say his name. I actually know his name, but I don't want to give him the publicity.
Yeah, I said another one. I probably won't repeat that killer, but yeah, killers tend to get a lot.
And then there's the one that are technically, they're not called terrorist attacks, even though they were. Like the guy, again, I actually know his name, but I'm not going to say it. The one that killed 9 black Christians in, Charleston, North Carolina, in a black church, a predominantly black church, a historically black church, to kill black people because he wanted to start a race war and he wanted to kill people who were black. Why is it almost always men? It's not like there aren't female racists. It's not like there aren't female Islamist extremists. Why is it almost always men?
Well, these are the pitfalls of well, we talk about extremism. Could it be extremist masculinity? Could you argue that? Extremist
masculinity. Okay, so let's break that down. What is ISIS? ISIS is an extremist group. They want to build an Islamist caliphate. Yeah, they want to build a caliphate. They want their own state that is run by religious laws or laws based on whatever they think Islam is supposed to be and whatever they think the law should be. They want it in their own image with their own laws, and they want to be in charge. And they want their caliphate to be as big as possible and as influential as possible. Go on.
We're talking about Islamic. What about that shooting in the church? What was that guy's intention?
That guy's MO was, I remember reading a snippet from his blog shown on other platforms. That guy's MO was that he was annoyed He was pissed off that white on black crime was reported, according to him, reported a lot more often on mainstream media than black on black crime or black on white crime. And he, through what he was saying, the implication was that he believed it was because they felt sorry for black people more because they were less human. He made the comparison, he made this following comparison, and I'm trying to quote it here, but I'll do my best. He said, if a man attacks a dog, you feel sorry for the dog. If a dog attacks a man, you feel less sorry for the man. I believe I mentioned this in our very first podcast. Basically, he was comparing black people to dogs, dehumanizing us, talked about how, we're less. So, obviously, as we've said in previous podcasts, if you dehumanize people, it's a lot easier to do damage to them and to abuse them and to harm them if you think they have less rights.
And as I mentioned last time, like that woman that was given a TED talk she talked about how she was a feminist, and then she started looking into the men that will talk about the abuse that they suffered by women. She did a thing where she tuned out what they said, and when they said one thing about how the abuse that men win, she kind of tuned out how all the abuse that men win, and just thought, oh, you're just saying that because when it happens to women, she did it herself. But when she went back to the feminist and started talking about it, she became victimized as well. So when you humanize your enemies, you yourself are dehumanized.
Okay.
So this shooter whose name doesn't need to be named, he basically felt that white people were being dehumanized, so he thought, I'll kill black people, and it'll bring. He was kind of, I think he was trying. Yeah.
He felt as if white people being killed by blacks, or black people killing themselves or each other, I should say, was spoken about less and highlighted less than white on black crime. His reasoning was that it was because they feel more sorry for black people. My personal opinion is that that's only done to make black people and ethnic minorities feel less powerful, to make them feel more oppressed, and then they'll feel oppressed, and then they join these movements, and then they protest, and then a few of the protesters do commit crimes. They burn things, break things, fight police officers, and then that makes the news, and then the newspapers make money, the news people make money, the companies who create the news make money, report the news make money.
Back to the point.
And then more people buy that stuff. So yeah, I feel as if he looked at the fact that white on black crime, especially white police on black crime, was reported more often because black people because black people were getting more pity than white victims of crime.
I think he felt like he was a liberator in a sense of white oppression. That's what he thought. You can't rationalize these things, but he probably felt he was a hero. Like he was like, oh yes, I've killed all these black people, finally, but white people are having their day in the sun, so to speak. You can't rationalize what he does, to be honest.
And you can only imagine what he was thinking of before doing that.
He's in prison, isn't he?
I've even lost my train of thought now.
Yeah, he trying to kill people.
Okay, so terrorists, most of these people are men. And we need to talk about this because you've got people, you made a point earlier when we were, before the podcast, we were looking over these attacks, and the Tunisia attack of 2015, the man was, you say he was your age.
Yeah, my age. He was
and
23 at the time.
This guy, he was 23 at the time, but this was in 2015. So you two were the same age at the time. Okay, but he had a girlfriend, he was a local break dancer, he seemed to have a life, and he seemed to have things going for him.
He was fairly active, he wasn't isolated, he wasn't feeling reclusive, he wasn't.
But the problem was he started believing in extremist ideologies and supporting the wrong people, and then he ended up killing people, and then apparently he was high on cocaine when he did so, when he killed people in Tunisia, most of whom British tourists.
I think the market attack, they were on steroids as well. The ones that came with people with knives in London, right?
The one in London.
Yeah, how they were when they were elected, the blood work they were tested positive for steroids, and also sadly, everyone that went to hospital with injuries, they all had to go for major surgery. None of them had a lunatic there. These people were on steroids, and they were trained to cut in places that were vital.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't want to talk about that, but they spent a lot of effort in making sure who they hit got hurt properly.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah, that's.
But it doesn't answer the question I'm trying to answer. I mean, obviously you can answer this in a million different ways. But we need to talk about it from our perspective. Why do you think that it's mostly men doing this stuff? Is it because of power? Is it because they want to be famous? Is it because they want to be seen as strong and tough? Is it because they want to build a caliphate, which means more land and more money? Is it because they are looking for some sort of stability? Is it because they believe in these weird extremist ideologies, and then they meet groups of people who believe in the same exact ideologies? So they find this sort of cult, they find this sort of family, this sort of organization with similar views to them, and there's some sort of camaraderie. Is it because of that? Why do you think it is?
I think ultimately it's because they feel what they're doing is right. Some of these people, they pretty much know, or they have a high. They probably consider the point that when they undertake what they're going to do, they probably know there's a really high chance that they will die. So they won't live to see the consequences, and negative or positive, depending on their perspective on the matter. They probably think they're right. So they're like, and also when you think of ideology, they think, oh, I kill these many people, I do this and that, I bring strength to my cause, and I go to heaven or whatever when I die. They feel there's a reward in it.
What I don't understand is these young men, or just men in general, what they go out of their way to plan these attacks, to commit these attacks, to orchestrate these attacks, to be trained to be able to commit these attacks and orchestrate them. They take the time and effort in believing these extreme ideologies and meeting people that have similar views, and working together with those people to commit heinous acts of terrorism.
You gave that analogy of echo chamber. That's all they hear.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So as we've spoken about echo chambers before. They meet people with similar views to them. They all talk about the same things, and then those beliefs are therefore reinforced. The illusion of truth to these beliefs is reinforced because all they hear is an echo chamber of the same exact views.
All of them are like-minded guys, and they'll be like, to them, that's their whole family. So they think, oh, they can't all be wrong. That's their justification. They can't all, everyone I know can't all be wrong. So obviously they must be right. That's what they probably think.
Okay, so that's one aspect that we've figured out to an extent. But after finding that cult, after finding their brothers in arms who think exactly the way they do, okay, fine. But after Hitler didn't want to die though, that's the difference. But after going through all of that pain and struggle and going through the effort and time, it makes no sense to me that they would have so little regard for their own lives, let alone other people's, when they start committing attacks and killing others and then becoming suicide bombers.
That's the thing, they feel they are right. They feel like what happened to them, they would say they could live or have a afterlife where the consequences, they basically feel there are no consequences to their action. They have a detached sense of responsibility.
To make all of these sacrifices so that they could live out the rewards in the afterlife, the better life.
Yeah, and obviously there's some people that kill and then, or rob or whatever, and live the benefits.
Well, what's the point?
What's the point of anything? You can't justify their train of thought, but that's what they feel.
We're not trying to,
No, that's the point. That's what they feel. You can't change what they feel. All you have to hope is that they take a moment and think about why they're doing this and whether... I mean, violence creates more violence, but they want more violence. So, we want less violence, but, you talk to them, they say, oh, no, you're wrong, we have to do this, And I say, you don't have to. They won't listen to you because they've had this thing ingrained to them.
Or this conviction and passion into doing the wrong thing because it's something that they've ingrained into their heads for so long that they don't believe anything else.
Yeah, but they could say the same thing about us. They'd be like, oh, you've been warped into thinking that this is fine, this is blah. Extremist Muslims talk about moderate Muslims, but we say moderate. Every religion has moderate people, that's the majority, hence why it's called moderate.
I think a couple of seconds ago, what you just said, it made me think about the Lee Rigby killing, the killing of the soldier by two men One of them said, "Your government doesn't. You think your government doesn't care about you?" And that was an interesting statement because it proved that those men, their acts were not just anti-military; they were anti-government. And obviously, that soldier died because as the killing was some sort of protest to Western intervention in the Middle Eastern conflicts. But at the same time, how on earth is being angry at them? I mean, it doesn't make sense. We could do 1,000 hours of research; it still won't make sense.
Yeah,
I mean, the man said, "Your government doesn't care about you," after killing Lee Rigby. Okay, fine. So what if the government doesn't care? Like, it doesn't. If you,
that's a tragic irony to what they said.
why is that? Help me explain.
So they say the government don't care about you, so I'm gonna kill this random guy that I've never met, has not done anything harm to me, but yeah, I'm gonna kill this random guy. So basically, you're accusing the government of not caring about us, but you just killed someone who could easily be one of us.
Perhaps.
Yeah,
I mean,
they kind of invalidate.
I know they wanted to make the political statements of killing a soldier because, of course, the soldiers would have to go to war and help with the Western intervention of these conflicts. And some of them would have to fight against ISIS, and some of them would have to fight against Islamist extremists.
You say that, I forget what day that attack was, but imagine if it was Halloween and there were lots of people dressed as soldiers as Halloween.
Yeah, maybe they planned against that.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like anyone on any random day could wear what they want. If you think about it.
I don't even think he was wearing uniform. He was. I think
he was leaving training or something. He was leaving he was leaving the base and they attacked him there.
Yeah.
I know, but my point is that basically anyone. They say a leopard can't change sports, but we're humans. We could change our clothes, whatever. We could wear whatever image we want, in a sense. Cut our hair, grow it out, depending. I mean, some people are bald, but you get my point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, that guy that they killed could easily, put him in whatever attire they wear in, like, Syria and whatever, and you'd be thinking, oh, he's a Syrian soldier, or he's a Syrian extremist, or he's a Muslim extremist, he's a Pakistani extremist, or English extremist. If you wore an England flag and shaved your head and so on, nationalist.
Sure.
I mean, it's image has a great deal of influence on people. That's a whole other thing, but image, body image, image.
Perhaps it's an unanswerable question.
No, there is an answer. It's like, to me, I feel that men are naturally more violent. That's my opinion. We're basically the hunter-gatherer, and we lived in a civilized time where we no longer, or the majority of us don't need to hunt and gather and so on. So
are you talking? It's a bit abstract, but you're talking about the fact that
they need to feel
these men need some sort of purpose, but they just happen to find the wrong one.
No, I'm saying that if you think about our ancestors, our male ancestors, they probably grew up on violence, wars, and so on. These guys feel the need to pursue that. Their drive is violence. For whatever means, they need violence. They seek out violence. Well, our ancestors, technically, they had violence as for food and so on. You know what I mean, right?
Okay.
Do you get my point?
Yeah, I get your point, but I feel if it's more complicated than that.
It is complicated, but I think that's an explanation that I could tell myself, and that makes sense. They have an innate response.
Okay, so a final point. Trying to get back to our main area of topic today. Masculinity. Do you feel as if there is too much pressure on young men to be real men, or a certain type of man?
I think it's subtle. I mean, like parents can put a certain amount of pressure on their children, their sons and so on. But I think it's there, and depending on who you're with,
yeah.
There is pressure. I mean, there's a certain anticipation. What country, what culture you're from, there's a certain, you have to live up to a certain standard.
Okay. I just feel as if sometimes the criteria of what it means to be a real man can be
skewed.
Definitely skewed, but perhaps it's something that isn't too much of a big deal, but it is something that it doesn't need to be pushed. Like, everyone's got their own clock, everyone's got their own time frame. The problem with these skewed perceptions of masculinity, even in the modern society, is that not everybody's going to have a house by 25 or 35. Not everybody's going to have a car by that age either.
Even 45.
Perhaps. So if you have less money, or if you have a job where you make less money, does that make you less manly? It kind of makes people compare oneself to somebody else who seemingly has more money or more material possessions, and then think less of themselves, which obviously doesn't help mental health or one's perception of themselves either. And of course, it's the same with women. There are unrealistic goals that all women are supposed to achieve by 20 or 30 or 40. Is that, well, you have to be married by this time, you have to have kids by this time. What if the woman doesn't want to get married? What if a woman doesn't want to have kids? Same thing with men. What if the man doesn't want to have kids? What if the man doesn't want to own a house? What if he only wants to rent? What if he doesn't want to have a wife or a husband?
Which is all fine, depending on the man. It's his choice at the end of the day, and the woman's choice.
Exactly. I mean,
It's all subjective.
Not only are these subjective skewed perceptions of masculinity and, of course, femininity and growing up in general, not only are they skewed and subjective, they're not realistic for every person. And I'm sure most people are trying to reach these goals, and eventually they'll achieve these goals and surpass them. But there's the temptation to compare yourself to someone else who's already surpassed these goals and think, are they better than me? Are they more grown up? Are they more adults-like? Are they more of a man than me or more of a woman than me? That's...
I think there are a lot of people that are more women than you.
Yes, than me. But would I be manlier than a person who doesn't make as much money than me, or...
Well, don't often people that...
Would I be less manly than someone who makes more money than me? That's something that many people would think to themselves.
Don't often people attribute manliness with like the working class and like you're a proper man if you like do that stuff like...
What? Okay, yeah, some people, you have people in the working class and middle class doing laboring jobs and construction jobs and say, oh, you're not a real man unless you do something with your hands. There's that stereotype. And then there are other people who just work in offices. Are the ones who work in offices less manly, more manly than the ones working in construction or laboring? I think it really depends. I mean, we can
talk for hours and hours.
We could talk for hours about it, but I think on that note, we can just
it's a matter of perception.
Yeah, we can just close on the fact that these are perceptions of masculinity or growing up. You can take it with a pinch of salt. You can go with it. You can go against it. You can't be pigeonholed by other people's opinions of you or other people's opinions of what growing up should be.
God knows we can't be.
Yeah, and on that note, we're done for today. Thank you for listening. Go onto YouTube, type in Politically Challenged, and you'll see our page. Go onto facebook.com/politically challenged if you want to see our Facebook page. We also have a Politically Challenged podcast Facebook group. Our Instagram is Politically Challenged 247, one word, and our Twitter account is PCPOLITICAST. In other words, PC Politicast. That's our social media. Please check us out, and goodbye.